Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Rodriguez.
Okay, certainly several things to get through this evening, but we should be able to move through pretty quickly. First of all, I am very excited to introduce a couple of our new administrators. So I might ask Dr. King to maybe do those introductions for us. And we have two brand new folks. So however you want to start that.
Okay, well, we've got one brand new role, but not brand new to us. So I'm going to introduce to you Mr. Daniel Shear, who was, if you remember, last year was the coordinator of professional development and will now be the principal at Meadowmere. So I'm going to have him go ahead and just come right up here. He's spoken to you before, but Mr. Shear, if you'd like to just say a couple words to them about your past experience, and then a couple of things, and then they'll probably ask you a few questions. Okay.
Members of the board, Dr. Rodriguez, Dr. Maya, Dr. King, Dr. Carlson. Thank you for inviting me to come back and speak with you again. It was my distinct honor to come here a year ago to Grandview. I've been in a couple of metro districts and served in some different capacities. I've been a classroom teacher. I was a University of Missouri mentor, and eventually became the coordinator of our MU program in that district. I became an instructional coach after that. I taught for the University of Missouri through part of that partnership program. Was an administrator, and then felt like I was maybe not in the right seat on the bus. I felt like I needed to change. And so I went to our neighbor over here at Lee Summit and taught for 3 years. And after those 3 years, thought that maybe it was time to go back in a different direction, which I have a huge passion for professional development. But in that year, two things happened. I fell in love with the district. So happy that I came here, have worked with phenomenal people, great teachers, great students, great families. But again, I've always been very heart-led. If I feel like I'm just not in the right seat, then I have to be really honest about that. And so the one thing that I missed tremendously was my day-to-day contact with students. I was able to work with a lot of our teachers, but it's a different relationship that you have with teachers when you are on the go, moving building to building versus being in a building, working with a staff that you work every day, day in and day out. And so that's a little about me. So happy to be here, happy for the opportunity.
Questions?
So you have a pretty varied background, but I just wanted to ask you, can you expand a little bit on how your role last year as director of professional development is going to help you as principal?
Well, I think, you know, when you worked for Dr. King and you are deep in the midst of curriculum and instruction, you know what's going on in the classrooms of our district, the needs of our teachers. And part of my role and part of all of our role is to be a direct link to our teachers. What do they need? What do they feel is working well? What do we need more support on? Where do we want to go next? Where do we want to grow? So I had that time to kind of live in Grandview's professional development. And part of Dr. King's vision is that curriculum and instruction members are out in the buildings, that we're visible, that we're working with teachers, we're seeing administrators, we're working alongside them and getting the sense of where do we go next? What do we do? I think listening, reading those surveys, being a part of conversations and planning sessions gives me a kind of a better broad view of where we're going and what we're doing, and then know how to kind of tailor that back, pull that vision. Sometimes part of, I think, of a principal's role is you take those broad initiatives and you have to help sometimes people to see that vision of how does that impact me and where do I fit in that plan. And I think when I've been in a broad role and a more narrow role, even back to a classroom teacher's role, I have those varied perspectives. And I think when you have those varied perspectives, you understand where people are coming from. You can kind of relate to why I might be fearful of something, or where I might not see that I have the ability when I just need a cheerleader, or maybe I really am lacking some support. And this is something that could help in professional development, could help with, you know, partnering alongside or team teaching or doing whatever you need to do. So I think that broad view is really helpful because I know how to pull that back into a building role, because I think the one thing that is always a disconnect when you are in one role, even if you have varied perspectives, sometimes you don't. always live outside of that one perspective. And so being back in a building allows you to have those ongoing conversations. So, sure.
Yes. Okay, I'll ask one.
Sure.
So, I'm sure if you didn't know already, Mettmer is very near and dear to my heart. I had 2 kiddos go through there, so I'm very familiar with that building.
Mhm.
So there's definitely some long tenured teachers there who've had some different principals over the years. What is your plan to ensure that right off the bat, you're building positive relationships and helping them understand that you've got a lot to bring to that building and that they, want to work with you really well?
Well, today, one of the things that I was doing, it's a little lonely at Mettler right now because it's just me and 3 custodians. But what I was
amazing.
working on today was our professional development that we're going to have when teachers come back into the building. And so, that's ever present on my mind, because I think when you have teachers that have had varied administrators, every time you make, everyone in this room knows, every time you change an administrator, you're kind of reshuffling the deck. And that spikes a lot of nervousness and discomfort. And I know the teachers there a little bit. I had an opportunity to be there earlier in the spring. So I know them. I have spent half of the staff we've gotten through some one-on-ones. The rest of the staff will do in August when they're back in the building. I think that just is that very first point of there's no one else in the room. It's just the 2 of us. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are your needs? What I was writing today was about partnership, and the slide that I was working on and the section was about how we partner, because if the perception is anything other than we're partners, we're already off to the wrong start. And I think making sure that everyone in that building knows, even though I'm a strong proponent that when we're teaching, if it's a 2nd grade team, I think we're all teaching the same standards. It doesn't mean we're identical in how we deliver that instruction. People can still be themselves, can still have their own personalities and deliver what we want to do in a common vision, but in an individual way. I think sometimes that can be a concern of veteran teachers of how does this, change impact me? Am I still valued? Do I still have a purpose? And everyone at that table has value, has purpose. It's just a different way of finding those connections and helping people to see that vision and connect them to the bigger picture.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel.
Thank you.
Board.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And next, we have Mr. Remington, Mr. Justin Remington, and he is going to be our new activities director. And he also comes to us from a variety of former positions, including activities director, including building principal, including teacher, and all kinds of things. So I'm going to let him introduce himself, talk a little bit, and then you can feel free to grill him with some questions.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Like Dr. King said, kind of have a variety of background experiences, most recently high school principal the last couple of years. Prior to that, I spent 8 years as an assistant principal and then AD in various couple different roles. So prior to that, I was a PE teacher and a basketball coach. So lots of different experiences there. I have 3 kids, 3 boys. My oldest is 15 years old. My youngest is 11. So they also keep me very busy when I'm not working. So a lot of on the go there. So, but I'm excited to be here. Kind of hit the ground running on a lot of different areas over the last couple of weeks. So meeting coaches and scheduling, hiring coaches. So kind of getting busy at it. So.
Any questions for Mr. Remington?
I have a question.
Sure.
The roles kind of have been a little bit change management the last 3 years. So, new faces every year for the last 30 years. So how do you plan on partnering with your coaches and things of that nature?
I think the biggest thing is kind of being a support for them. I want to support the program. They're the leader of their program, but I want to do everything I can to help them grow and find them the resources and the tools that they need to be successful. So that's kind of, how I see being in this seat is being that resource for them.
And how do you see yourself working with the other building administrators?
I think it's important. That's an important piece to this position is you have to be able to work with everybody. You're on their team. So building that relationship and being that team member with them Just example in the hiring process. I mean, our coaches are teachers as well, so we all have to work together to find those best candidates. So I think it's an important piece is to be able to work together.
I have a question. How do you see yourself building a relationship also with the kids, and where do they fit in that picture?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the job, honestly. Like, I love going to activities. I love, supporting the kids. I love recognizing the kids. I love being able to, blast their successes out, whether it be on the website, on social media, just having conversations with them about, them and their activities. So that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is building those relationships with those kids, seeing them grow, and watching them be successful.
Other questions? Yeah. So I'll finish it up then.
Okay.
So you said 2 weeks, right? You've been working for 2
Yeah.
weeks. So what is the greatest asset you've seen, and what is the biggest challenge you've seen in the first 2 weeks?
Good question. I think the greatest asset is good people. I think there's a lot of good administrators, good leadership, a lot of good coaches. Haven't met everybody yet. I'm still in the process of kind of doing that. I'm excited to start meeting the kids. I know I've seen some programs working really hard already the last couple of weeks. Challenges, I think, like every other district that, kind of have the same challenges. Definitely COVID right now. So that's a huge challenge that we'll have to work through as we continue, through this pandemic. But challenges like everything else, finding enough resources for the programs, things like that.
I'm gonna add a challenge more. I think what goes to what you were just saying. I mean, he's coming in and he's had the rapid succession of changes, and him being able to establish processes and protocols that don't change. I think that will be a challenge, but I think that one of the things that we're very, that I really enjoy and have already noticed is he's very detail oriented, and he's very process oriented. Like, we're not going to make rapid changes. We're going to look at what's there, and we're going to decide what's going to be best. And we're going to bring a collaborative process along before we make any rapid changes. And we're going to see what's the why of why we've done it this way, and do we need to change? And then going forward, how will that process look? And bringing buy-in from all is going to be huge. But it will be a challenge.
You might remember, those of you that are new, but this position used to not be an administrative position, and we elevated it a couple of years ago, and to an administrative position as well. So I think his background, his
In administration.
experience in terms of being an administrator as well is another thing that we've been looking to. And so I think that's going to benefit him as well. It's really certainly going to help him, but definitely going to be some challenges.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Welcome.
So that's going to be it for the introductions. A quick centralized enrollment update. Obviously, that opened up on July 5th. And so it's now open. We've got several individuals already going through that. It's kind of hard to compare at the moment, but certainly I think we've had about 1,800 already enrolled. So we're moving forward with that. I don't see any challenges. Some of you that are parents may have received some calls as well about how we're still any challenges with individual parents that need to come up. And do that individually. We'll work with those families and get them enrolled and work with the documentations. So should be great. We'll continue to give you some updates as we move along.
How long is it open?
Yeah. Same question. In stereo.
How long is it open?
Through the 29th
of
July.
July.
Administrative retreats every single year, just like we have the bookend on the back end of the school year with our administrators. We also start the school year the same way. So administrators will return, and we'll have 2 days next week, 3 days next week that we'll actually meet with them. So Dr. King, you want to give us just a brief I think I changed it to 3 already. So it's 2 days in the back side, 3 days in the front end. So give us a brief synopsis of that.
Sure. So we're going to be beginning to meet next Wednesday. We choose different venues to kind of spread them around. We're going to go to Museum of Prairie Fire next Wednesday. That'll be just principals and APs and really delve into some curricular and curricular issues that they're going to be facing next year, and planning out their 30, 60, 90-day plans and their SIPs and what those are going to look like, and making sure that we understand the importance of those and how they're going to play out. Thursday is going to be at Stony Creek in Independence. It's going to be all administrators, all directors, and going to be their first and real introduction to Dr. Carlson and Dr. Maya, and each director is going to be able to present certain aspects of their department going forward. How's it going to look when we come back to school? What's our mission vision for the year? What form is everything going to take, as best we know right now, depending on what happens, CDC coming up. And then we're going to end up with the big Jeopardy game, so that will be kind of fun. So making sure everybody pays attention to all of the stuff. And then Friday is our law day, so our lawyers speak with us about everything we need to know about the up and coming laws and policies. And we're going to do that at Union Station. And that's always a fun day. We always learn quite a bit, and then we kind of have an after party after that is over, and that kicks off and being back in our buildings, and then it's just a matter of time before students return.
It's always a good time to meet with them when they come back. They're refreshed and certainly ready to go. A lot of exciting things coming up, and certainly I told you as we end the year some challenges that we know we're going to be faced with. So how do we meet those challenges? We're still going to have kids that are come back and are going to be counting us. So got a lot of things that we have to work through. But very excited to have them return. COVID-19 update was alluded to just there. I think this is going to be the biggest question that we face for the next several weeks. There probably obviously not going to be another board meeting prior to us and kind of getting some of this information. So I'll provide some of this to you in an administrative update. But the CDC guidelines did go forward and released those particular components. I actually was in Washington, D.C. over the last several days as part of my AASA advocacy group. We actually heard from the CDC, and so we pushed back on several different things, including some challenges around transportation and some other particular components, but some good conversations. We've already started the conversation with the Jackson County Health Department as well. They have not updated their local guidance as of yet. They're a little hesitant to do that, even though things, the numbers are still not necessarily crazy here. Obviously, everyone's worried about Springfield and some of the other real hot spots across the state. So very concerned about some of those pieces. So they're not really willing to change some of their guidance quite yet. So we're very hopeful around that, but we'll continue to monitor those pieces and get some input from them, as well as, again, when our administrators return next week and determine what really is the school year going to look like at the beginning of the year. So we'll continue to push vaccinations as much as we can with our students, but we also know that vaccines still are only for 12 and up. We heard from the CDC that they anticipate that changing, but that probably is not going to change until probably at least August or September. And it'll be opened up to other levels of ages of students. So we'll kind of see how that goes and monitor that. But we'll be putting that together. And again, I'll share some updates on what we do, and we'll be flashing that out to our families as well, because I know there's a lot of questions around that. The number one question that I have heard, though, and even from some of our teachers, I tried to lay the groundwork at the end of last year that we are going to be open. So starting next week, we'll be starting to share some additional information leading up to school, and just our schools will be open. We will be back in 5 days a week, and welcoming our students back, and we want to make sure that our families know that, and so they can plan ahead. I know last year it was very difficult to be able to do that because we just didn't have the information that we needed. So we have enough information to at least be able to go forward with that, but obviously everybody wants to know whether they're going to be having masks or not, and some other concerns. So we'll get there. I'm just not willing to go on record just quite yet without having those conversations with them, and hopefully getting some updated guidance, as well as conversations with area schools. As you know, what happens in some of the area schools still impacts us. So as we look at what's going to happen with some schools, there are a few school districts that have already done record. Most of the ones that have gone on record have been to where masks are just a request, certainly not a requirement. So we'll see how the rest of the metro plays out. And as people come back from some vacations and things, I plan on having some conversations over the course of the next 2 weeks. So that's kind of the COVID-19 update for now, just because I know that's where everybody is, but we'll continue to update you as we get some more information moving forward. On the board parties update, I did put on there, I will tell you, going to Washington DC and meeting with superintendents and groups from across all the United States and really listening to those updates and the things that are going on. We spent yesterday actually at the Capitol and talking with a variety of different aides and in a lot of our local and area of Missouri representatives. We did get to meet with actually Representative Roy Blunt. And so he actually met with us, and that was a really good conversation around challenges and what's going on. But certainly we spent some time thanking them. This is the most money that's ever been put into public education. And so this is certainly a life-altering type of event. Our concerns were around timelines and making sure that we have some additional time possibly to spend the monies that were being given. Not all of it's been given to us yet. Not all of it has even been allocated to us yet. But as that does happen, we're asking for an additional extension on some of those timelines to make sure that we can spend those dollars to the best of our abilities to really make the most impact with our students. So there's going to be a lot of exciting things that we're going to do over the course of the next several years that are going to provide those supports to our families and to our students, but also to our buildings and being able to upgrade some things. So there's going to be some of those conversations that we'll have, and we'll kind of talk about how some of that money is being spent and what we're trying to do with that, so that we get your updated as well. But it really was exciting to be a part of that group and hear what's going on. Some common themes across the country. Certainly, everybody's very concerned at the start of school. As you listen to different things, DC just opened up within the last month as it was. So there were still several areas that were still closed, but it's still relatively fresh. And while we were at the Capitol, I think we were almost everybody's second in-person meeting that they'd ever had since everything closed. So it was certainly very unique in that particular regard. Several other things on there. Work continues to go on. We were here 3 weeks ago, so maybe a little bit less things that have happened in those 3 weeks, but certainly a lot of things around the start of school. So happy to answer any questions, but that's my report.
Sure. Any questions? Yeah, we will move on then. Salient dates, Dr. Arias.
Yeah, so we have a couple things. Obviously, we have a work session right now scheduled for Saturday, July 24th. All district convocation on Monday, August 16th. Our plan right now is to have that in person. We're looking at some overflow possibilities as well for individuals who might want a little bit more space and still might not be as comfortable. Certainly, we feel like most of our staff have had the opportunity to be fully vaccinated. And so we're hoping to continue to move forward with that. And then you see your next regular meetings and such, but certainly the first day of school on August 23rd, and it will be here before we
Not quite ready for that.
I know, for all the teachers that are listening, I'm very, very sorry I just said that.
Teachers, parents, I don't know. All right, we'll move on then to finance committee report.
Okay, the Finance Committee met July 13th at 5:15. In attendance were voting members Amy Blankenship, John Kessinger, and myself, David Green. Non-voting members were Roy Howson. There were no guests in attendance. We reviewed the regular open board meeting. Roy answered any questions or any comments that were made, addressed those. Inspection of warrants. The committee inspected representative warrants. Mr. Kissinger and Ms. Blankenship examined all warrants over 15,000. Myself, Mr. Green examined expense and reimbursement warrants, and Dr. Carlson responded to any questions. Based on examination, the Finance Committee recommended the warrants be approved by the Board of Education. And the meeting adjourned at 5:42 p.m.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on that? On the recapitulation of funds, Dr. Arias.
Yeah, so certainly we had the end of our fiscal year, and so there's just a few pieces there to maybe update us on. So Dr. Powell.
Thank you. I really just, as presented, our total operating, I don't really feel like I need to read this whole thing to you, but total operating funds, 58 million, all funds was 66 million. What I hope to do at our administrative retreat really is to share this type of information with the principals and try to do a better job of educating them also. So that's really a goal I have, is really just try to communicate more with principals and buildings so they kind of understand their budgets a little better. So as far as the expenditures for the month, you can see that our final closeout from June 2021. All the supporting documents are in there, executive summaries, all those documents. Do you have any questions for me on any of this?
I think that I'll add to that, it's just, you might see it as well, up a little bit. And again, we're gonna see pieces of that as we get some of those federal dollars that come in. So it's gonna skew a few of those things a little bit more. Again, we're still trying to be fairly conservative on our particular numbers and what we're hoping to achieve in terms of our end goal at the end of the year and our reserves. But we feel very positive and very good about how that'll all play out, especially with the flexibility that we'll have with those ESSER dollars as they continue to come in. So we'll keep you updated there as well. Just pay attention to that.
Quick question. You may not know the answer to this, but I do see expenditures are down 1.46 million from this time last year. Was there a big purchase last year? Were we doing construction? I don't remember. Why is it so far down?
I think for the most part, because we didn't know what was going to happen. Remember, most of the year we were we had already been cut 3 different times, and we were just under the assumption that that money was never coming back. We had to play that game for the most part, because even though they said it possibly could, we were not given really any guarantees. And so even up until, I think the last time I mentioned it was in March, and April was the first time that they gave some of that money back. So we still were playing the game of I'll believe it when I see it kind of thing, until it actually started coming in April, May, and June. So last month actually was the last payment to recover from what they had taken from us at the beginning of the year. So we just rode that out. We didn't want to spend any more or anything like that. So we spent as little as we possibly could in that regard and didn't go crazy through most of the beginning of that year. Actually, I think I started last year in one of the administrators meetings and actually said, hey, we're going to have to stop spending anything. Like, we're going to have to be really conservative because we just don't know what this is going to look like. So I think we did a pretty good job of that. So we don't want to go crazy now, but we're certainly in a very different spot. So I would attribute more to that. Okay.
Fiscal responsibility. I like it. All right. Any other questions about that? All right, well, we will move on. Audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to an agenda item tonight? All right. Then we will move right along to consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion on that.
Move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Probably moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, thank you, Pastor unanimous. Action.
Okay.
That's
Ready for action? Here we go.
so enthusiastic. I loved it. All right, Dr. Rodriguez.
All right, so again, we've kept this as a standing update for a while. And I think it's going to be something that we continue for a variety of different reasons. So it may take the place of a couple other agenda items, but we're going to continue doing this. And so for this month, we have a couple different pieces that we want to do and provide you updates for some exciting and actually outstanding stuff that's really gone on for the last month. So again, this is usually the time that my mother calls me and says, sure, it's really relaxing that summertime that you have nothing going on. So it couldn't be anything further from the truth. We've got a lot of exciting things that have gone on. So Dr. King, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so we would like to present to you tonight on our summer school. Some of the updates that happened at the actual summer school dates and what is going on right now. So to do that, I would like for Ms. Elizabeth McCracken. She is curriculum director. I don't think she's presented to you for a while, and some of them, she might be new to some of you. She's my curriculum director. She's going to present to you on summer school and summer school updates. You want to?
Yes, please, just take one screen.
And I placed at everybody's desk there, you have 2 documents on summer school that you will be referring to.
Good evening. This spring, the CNI team began to prepare for summer school. We knew that many of our families were facing challenges that were related to the pandemic. Some parents had fears about sending their students back to be around other students. Some parents and some of our youngest students had never even been inside of a classroom in the last year to year and a half. So we took on this challenge of reimagining the summer school experience, and we wanted to capitalize on many of the skill sets that our students and teachers had gained over the last year and a half. And we intentionally addressed the barriers that would be getting in the way. Early on into this process, we learned that Link was going to be unable to provide the half-day afternoon services that they often provided for our morning-only summer school sessions. So that sparked us to rethink the entire season setup. We knew we had to keep in mind that we had weary teachers, we had cautious parents, and we had deserving students. At this point, I want to pause to thank the school board. I want to thank you for agreeing to the $8 hourly increase for our certified staff. That allowed us to recruit administrators and teachers. And thank you for the 20% increase for our classified staff to pay for not only the support staff in the building, but the transportation and kitchen staff as well. Back. We settled on a 2-week intensive session with a focus on next grade readiness. We had learned so much in the process that we had to rethink some processes along the way. And we created new systems and new processes that hadn't existed before. We've already begun thinking about improved plans and ideas that we will move forward with next year as well. One change we made this summer is to form a partnership with the Barstow School that provided our incentive enrichment opportunity for our students. Barstow is a private secular school in Kansas City, Missouri, that's only about 6 miles from here at State Line Road. They serve about 720 students pre-K through 12 during the school year. They have been providing summer programming for over 35 years, and they have a metro-wide recruitment system to find creative and provide teachers with creative license to create engaging and enriching camps. Their website showcases their extensive summer programming. You have been given the Barstow flyer that was created for our Grandview students to use for the incentive advertisements with our summer enrichment program. They look like this. Let's begin with some of the summer school basic statistics. Typically, at the elementary level, enrollment has been very consistent since 2017 until 2019. In the year 2020, the pandemic created a virtual summer school session, and it dramatically lowered our attendance. This year, when we reopened our schools for summer school, we had about 100 fewer students enroll at the elementary level. Positively, at the middle and high school levels, the numbers are typical for enrollment. In fact, we have a bright spot at the middle school level. Typically, in a summer school session at all grade levels, there is a large drop-off from the first day enrollment to the last day enrollment. Sometimes up to 100 students or more will drop from beginning to end. This year, at Grandview Middle School, we only lost 14 students over the course of summer school. Our curriculum was focused on the Missouri Learning Standards at K-8. The classes were designed around grade level readiness, making sure that our students were ready for their next grade level. In our 9-12 classes, we offered recovery through the Odyssey Wear programming. And some of our qualified students in 8th through 12th grade were able to take acquisition of new courses through the Launch program. At K-8, the focus is on the Missouri Learning Standards with an emphasis in the essential standards of each grade level. That way, we ensured that teachers could focus on using district resources and practicing best instructional strategies with our students. Here are some pictures of our students enjoying the summer school programming. There's our link programming, a brain break. This is the first year we've offered PE as one of our electives. And just general cuteness. At the high school level, we had 260 high school students take advantage of this one-time opportunity for recovery. We knew that our students were really struggling during this pandemic, especially at the high school level, for a number of reasons, personally at home. We offered them the opportunity to recover some courses that they had trouble with. Our students recovered more than 120 courses over the month of June. We offered 70 hours of readiness instruction at K-8. The learning time was structured, maximized, and protected. You may recognize this type of data from iReady that Mr. Sizemore presented to you even just last month. What you are looking at on this screen is the students who took summer school. We retested them, the diagnostic in both reading and math, following the end of the month. What you are seeing on the top bar is the students who took summer school at the end, that is their most current data, and beneath it is their ending data from 1 month earlier during the end of year diagnostic. While it may look like there wasn't a lot of growth, what I took away from this data is that traditionally we tend to see a summer slide in data from the end of the school year to the beginning of the next school year. What I see here is after 1 month, I'm not seeing very much, if any, summer slide occurring. The same data holds true in math. Let's talk a little more about high school recovery. Offering 17 courses was quite a challenge. Typically, in a recovery situation, the courses are offered to students to hope to get from an F to passing. And at that point, they're released. Our students stayed for the remainder of the course, and many of them, as you can see on this chart, left. This is the average grade received in each of those 17 courses. Many of our students didn't just pass a class that they had struggled with. They are now entering the school year with A's, B's, and C's. To me, that reflects not just a desire to pass the course, but to actually acquire the content needed so that they can continue to be successful. At the end of summer school, all parents, teachers, and students were surveyed for feedback. We like their feedback because it helps us grow and continue to improve our programming for future years. The surveys indicated that students felt that the teachers cared for them and that they were being helped. The parents strongly indicated that their students were happy and were enjoying the programming. The teachers strongly felt that the administration was incredibly supportive of them. We did have some suggestions though. A lot of the suggestions we received were to increase the amount of sites we offer summer school opportunities for students, to increase the number of days that we offer summer school for students, to offer a pre-K incoming kindergarten option so that our pre-Ks come in ready for kindergarten, and to allow for some creativity with how the essential standards are taught, moving beyond just the regular way we instruct. I've already explained that we had a Barstow Connection partnership developed this year. In K-8, in order to achieve the Barstow Scholarship, they had to have 90% attendance. That meant in 70 hours, they could miss no more than 7 hours of instruction. At 9-12, in order to qualify, they had to successfully complete the course, the credit acquisition. Over 400 of our students qualified for the enrichment opportunity. Logistically, once that was explained to the parents, what was involved with the enrichment opportunity, some of our families were not able to meet the transportation requirements or the hours that it would be in place. So we actually had 150 students who were able to attend and take advantage of this scholarship opportunity. 45 of them were in grades K through 2, and over 100 of them were in the 3rd through 12th grades. We gave them 3 weeks of July to pick from, whichever week best met the needs of that family. The July 12th through 16th, 19th through 23rd, and 26th through 30th. As you can see, we are headlong into week 1. They were given their choice, and we did our very best to honor their top choice. At grades K through 2, not only were they given the week they wanted, but they were also allowed to choose from a variety of camp options in both the morning and afternoon sessions. We paid the scholarship for both sessions for them. Barstow provided a bus that meets our students at the Martin City School parking lot and transports them over to Barstow and back every day. We at Grandview provide a lunch, a snack, a refillable water bottle every day. We paid for both of their camps, and we meet them every morning to get on the bus, and we greet them every afternoon as they exit the bus and ensure that all children are back with their families every day. Here are some photos of the children enjoying camps this week at Barstow. Some of the camp options that were available were ceramics, Harry Potter, Lego robotics, Minecraft, baking, soccer, basketball, Pokemon, and Toy Soldiers historical gaming. Planning a week of daily excursions for our 3rd through 12th grade students was quite a challenge, but we enjoyed it. Barstow helped us with the organization and the securing of all tickets to all the venues. They also provided a free drink and lunch for the time they were at Dave & Buster's for all participants, including the chaperones. We provided lunch every day, a snack, and a refillable water bottle. We provided the transportation from Grandview High School to that day's excursion and back. We also paid Grandview teachers to chaperone small groups of these large amounts of students. And we paid for the venue tickets for every day's excursion for all children, all chaperones, and the bus driver too. Here are some pictures of our students enjoying the day trips that have been occurring this week. Worlds of Fun, Top Golf, Dave and Buster's, the Kansas City Zoo, Oceans of Fun. In closing, we learned a lot during the pandemic, just like our children did. And as we prepared for the 21 summer school experience, we wanted to be sure that we were prepared to address the school avoidance issues, and we authentically encouraged parents and students to invest in a safe return. We believed that we addressed the attendance incentive with the camps and the trips for those who attended. We provided student services beyond the essential readiness standards by offering social emotional supports every day for students. And we made sure that the setting was safe, welcoming, and applied the new skill sets that both teachers and students had gained over the last year and a half. Are there any questions we can answer?
Thank you. What questions do we have?
Like, it was a lot of fun for the kiddos.
And the chaperones too.
The chaperones had a good time as well.
I just signed up to be a chaperone.
Should have asked. Should have asked you guys. I'll do that
Fail.
next year.
We were begging, like people like, you wanna go, you wanna go.
And once they found out what this entailed, now I have sub chaperones. So they're like, if anybody's gone, I'll sub for the day.
Questions? I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for your work on this. I know that it was probably very challenging to figure out how to plan this in this kind of environment, and I'm sure the kids had a great time. I will say my younger son did do band at the middle school for the first time I've ever had a kid do a summer school anything. So and he had a great time. So thank you for everything you did.
Thank you both very, very much. Appreciate it.
I will say that Miss McCracken has taken this on. This was uncharted water. I mean, this whole Barstow and I mean, it sounded like, oh, Barstow, that's easy. We'll just do that. No, it was a major ordeal, and I appreciate all of her extra hard work. I think she's been up till midnight every night planning and doing things. So I really appreciate her work.
Thank you.
It was a lot, and that's certainly, I think the numbers kind of speak for that, of just the number of students that we were able to impact, which again, that's what we're trying to do. So we appreciate it very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Every day I asked her, I said, how's it going? And she says, well, it's a lot of work, but you know what? These kids are having a good time. So it's true. That's all that matters.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
President, if possible, we have a guest speaker this evening. It's a little bit further down on the agenda. We'd like to be able to move her up and let her present. She can not remain for the rest of our evening if she wants to.
Sounds good to me.
All right. As we've continued, we've brought back several different times and continue to do so. Our partnership with Cornerstones of Care was in February. Obviously, we were delayed in the start of our school year. So normally those are kind of in January and June for the last several years. So we kind of pushed everything back just a little bit. So February and July this year. So thank you very, very much for coming back and just kind of sharing the back end. So I'll drive if you just want to kind of tell me where to go.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you again for, being able to be part of this collaboration with you guys in your district. We really enjoy it and appreciate it. And it's a great district to work in. So with everything else, COVID has been an absolute new experience as we tried to figure out how to provide services virtually in person. We were glad that by the, towards the later into the second semester, we were able to get in person, and everybody's really thrilled to be back. So it was a year definitely of just adjusting and making changes, but we're glad that we were able to do it. So You wanna go ahead? So first I'll talk about, so we do, we have different ones. We have through 8th, and then we've started preschool. So I'll just talk about 3rd through 8th first. With the 3rd through 5th grade, we do the universal screenings twice a year. They were done in November, which was a lot later with COVID trying to figure it out, lasted over a month. And we did them again in March. So it was a much shorter time between them this year. But they actually went really well. We did 339 screenings in the spring, which again is hold true to about 100 less than what we've done the year before. But I think with COVID, was pretty good. I mean, we were pretty happy to be able to even, to see that many. As you're looking at this though, there were some that denied their data. So you won't see all of them on here because they didn't want to use parents did not want to have their information used. That's why they do not. But the other thing I want to note is that at the middle school, we had ended up with 34 screenings by the end of the year. So but that'll be a difference too for when I presented this, because originally I was going to do it in June. But so as you can see, this is what we did from each of the elementary schools. We also picked up 7 additional screenings in the elementary. And then it says 7 and 8 here, but we actually, by the end of the school year, were able to do 15 screenings for Grandview and 19 for Martin City. With the middle schools, we only do them once a year. We don't do the the beginning and end, so it's just on a referral basis. So, as you can see, these are based on the students who were screened in the spring. 294 students were screened for the second time this year, which meant in November they'd also been screened. We had 35 students that were new screenings. And you can just see here kind of the rate of if they were normal, elevated, or extremely elevated. If you look at the fall, just kind of rates that were here, just to point out things, there was an increase in normal screening in all areas. So we were able to see some improvement in every area for one to the next, even with everything going on. There was a decrease in elevated and extremely elevated in all areas, except for personal adjustment. Personal adjustment is that relationship piece. It's more how they're getting along with others in their life. So all other areas except for that one, we saw improvement. And so here's the breakdown again of just the original ones that had been done. Not all of them, but you can see here kind of how those lead up. Thing to keep in mind with middle schools, they're by referral only. So, I think it's we're still seeing a much higher level of normal, even with those that were identified as concerns. Post-screening services in 3rd through 5th grade. I'm sorry, so for therapy, there were 7 students that were discharged at the elementary level, and 6 of them had our Ohio scales. And they just look at the overall function of the child to see if they've been improvement or deteriorated. We are working there was a glitch in our system, so I wasn't able to pull it for the middle school, but we will be adding in the middle school also in the future. One thing I want to note about this is that we had 6 students who discharged before therapeutically recommended. That could be anything from they moved out of district. They weren't able to continue the services for whatever reason. They were discharged early. We saw an overall improvement in all areas except for one student who showed deterioration. That one student was one who ended. So I think the exciting thing is, even if they're not making it to full completion of treatment goals, they're still improving, especially during a time when there's all this chaos and a lot of different things going on. So we were really excited about that. This is something new that we started working on this year to kind of show you guys how we're showing and the differences that we're making. So this shows the change from those who are screened in the fall to those who are screened in the spring. 294 students are on this list that were screened both times. And you'll see that we were able to show improvement overall across the district in internalization and personal adjustment with those 294 students. This is prior to summer, and then I'll just kind of update you on where we are with summer. Because we've done a really hard push this year to provide more services for students over the summer to kind of help keep that momentum that is oftentimes lost during that summer time off. We attempted to reach 134 elementary families that were elevated. And that's in any area, it doesn't matter. You just had to be elevated in one area. We reached out. Then we sent letters home discussing services. 24 elementary families reached out for therapy services, and 15 middle school students were interested in services. In addition to that, 10 families were contacted for services for 3rd through 5th grade in therapy. And two accepted those. So we didn't have as many except over the summer. 14 families total were seen over the summer. For our family resiliency navigators, a total of 35 families were contacted based on referrals, and 12 families accepted those services. At our middle school level, a total of 32 families were contacted for extended therapy services. 16 students continued on in therapy over the summer. And then in the middle school, our family resiliency navigator contacted 50 families for extended services, 22 accepted. At the preschool level, a total of 18 families were contacted. And so our preschool therapists provide services for preschool through 2nd grade. So of those, we had 10 of those 18 accepted services. So total so far this summer, we've worked with 145 students. 45 students reached out to, 74 students we've continued to see this summer. Some of the reasons given for why families did not accept services is that either the parents didn't respond, they might have declined, couldn't fit it into the schedule. Some didn't have the electronic devices, and they didn't have parents at home who could be there when the kids were there. Excuse me. Or they just didn't follow through. They scheduled that first appointment and didn't follow through. So one thing, though, is that we continue to reach out to them and try and get that going. So we're trying to figure out how best to continue to serve those families. Okay. And this just kind of breaks down those services again. And then we've got the COVID-19. We were able to provide virtual services for students and families as well as school. We were able to offer teachers different supports. We reached out to them, but teachers were very, very busy and stuff. And so some of them were like, it was a little harder to get into them, but we were out there to offer them. We had much better luck connecting with teachers, students, everybody once we were back in the schools. As I talked about, screenings took place in the month of March. And the biggest thing is we were not able to do groups, just coordinating all of that with COVID and virtual in person. We weren't able to get those off the ground this year. All right, and then our preschool project was started in the fall. And I apologize, you can go over this one. This was actually out of order. We did this one earlier. We did the DECA screening, which showed initiative, self-regulation, attachment, total protectiveness factors, and behavioral concerns is what is rated for those. You can see here we had 10 parents that were able to fill out an initial DECA rating, and a majority of them showed an area of need. What happened with the preschool is it ended up being on referral basis. Our hope in the fall is that we will do like the elementary best screenings and be able to do universal screenings. But this year, because of everything that went on, they were by referral. And then the teachers, we had a total of 12 teachers fill out that initial. And you'll see a little change there. They saw the students more typical than the parents. And then again, for those 4, we only had 4 that had teacher pre and post to compare to. But you can see at 3 out of the 5 areas, there was improvement throughout the summer, throughout the school year. Now, some of the reason they don't have pre and post, maybe they were referred later in the year, so we weren't able to do a really good comparison. Then 4 parents completed the pre and post for DECA. And on that one, you'll see that two areas were improved. So definitely the parents were a little harder on their kids than the teachers were, or the kids were struggling a little more at home. Some of the implementation of recommendations we're looking at, again, I try to talk every time about recommendation 1, provide universal screenings. Some of the things we learned this year, even though COVID was difficult, we found a lot of new things and new ways to do things, is we're going to look at a tier system for follow-up so that we can be more efficient and make sure that right now we ask them questions. Question 13 is sometimes, often, or almost always, which says, my life is getting worse and worse. We pull aside and talk with them. So we're going to look at in the future, based on how that question and based on their results, which ones need to have the most immediate response, how we're reaching out to them more. We call to all parents right away, but those are going to be on a higher level of need, or we're going to do a little more, reach out a little longer with them. Then provide professional development to school staff and areas. We're continuing to address the best way to provide those trainings and get the information. One of the things I would like to do is to do maybe some more building-based trainings and really target some information at the building levels with the teachers, as well as doing the larger ones. We're also looking at the wraparound services. We're trying to use a common language so that teachers, parents, and students are hearing the same messages, and we're providing services in the same way. We use solution-based casework to support those focused wraparound services, which also has the benefit of bringing the adult more into the focus, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a student, so that not all the change relies on just the child, that they have those partners and we're building that support network for them. And then we use a collaborative and proactive solutions model, which just states all kids want to succeed. The only reason they're not succeeding is because they have a skill that is missing. Our job is to figure out what skills are missing and teach that skill. We're also looking at effective ways to continue to use the interns. One thing that's going to be different this year is we're going to have a second-year social work intern who can do the case management as well as some therapeutic stuff. We wanted to have 2, but unfortunately we only got 1 intern for the fall. So we're going to see how we can utilize that intern more effectively within the different areas. Again, so then talking about that rostering collaborative and proactive solution, we're hoping that we kind of talked about trying to do this last year, but then with COVID, it was just, we put it on hold. And we'll see how much bandwidth everybody has in this fall, right? If it's the time to roll out something new or different, really to be in and just kind of help the teachers, and that's some of that building-wide training on what that model is and how we're using it, so that we're all on board kind of. And we'll also be looking at how we can integrate that language with the BIST language, because they're very, very close and have some very similar things. This model is a little more therapeutic, so it brings a different level. And then again, we want to look at groups. One of the changes we want to do is maybe look at developing a group around that question 13, so we can better understand why they feel like their life is worse and how we can help that. Okay. The changes we want to see in the preschool program is to collect the consents of all more in the universal, and to continue to formalize that process on how we do it, and then provide transition. So this is going to be our second year, so we get to roll out the second half of this process, which is those preschool students who are coming into kindergarten. Our therapist will not only be in High Grove, but able to go to the different elementary schools, provide support in the classroom for those kids who are having trouble integrating into kindergarten and trying to help them meet those social emotional needs out there. We've proposed changing consents a little bit just to make it more clear, to try and make sure that we can report everything accurately and still de-identify information, but also to make it clearer what those follow-up services look like. Just so the parents, because some of it was in that like little print, like legal stuff is, we're just trying to make it more noticeable. Okay. Process improvements. We were able to do successfully virtual and one-on-one, although I was virtual was a little more difficult. Each child was given their screening one-on-one instead of doing them as a group while the screener was virtual. We started using the virtual screening, which has allowed us to improve how quickly we can get the results back. And we're continuing to refine the data and how we track it for you guys. And then we just want to really focus again, how do we know that our services are supporting what you're looking for? And so that's really the goal, that process improvement. How do we show that the work we're doing is effective? So, thank you. Any questions?
Questions we have?
Limited.
Ask away.
First off, do you have any demographic data to go with this? Because there are a lot of issues that are tied to a number of different things, depending on how you look at it, pinpoint what's going on. So do you have any demographics to go with the numbers or?
So I do have, I don't know, it was kind of the transition. We did do a full little report of the best numbers, but those don't necessarily say a lot of the demographics. We do pull demographics though for the Children's Service Fund, who helps with this. So I have pulled data for that. So we do have it, and because we used to do just like zip codes and things like that, only based on the school address, but we do now use their home address. So it is definitely available, and I can definitely pull some reports based on that, if that's something you're interested in.
I'd be curious to see that because, you know, in today's world, there's a lot of stuff going on. And to be very honest, you guys are dealing with trying to get over some of the trust issues. Because I'm just sitting down looking at thinking, here's somebody like in my community.
Yes.
We don't talk about mental health issues. You just don't. And then you have somebody that's a stranger in front of you asking information. You take that now to the next community where it's like over the last few years, it's been a push of, are you legal? Are you not? How do you get past those issues? Because we're looking at doing great things, but if you don't get past those issues, you're not going to get to the people that really need it, because there are so many things happening. And I'm just sharing with you this because I remember when I taught school for a couple of years. And I had a 12-year-old kid tell me he didn't think he was going to make it past 16. That's a heck of a statement to hear from a 12-year-old. And that, you know, that's one 12-year-old where the other one is talking about, well, I didn't get to go to summer camp. Two different issues of why their world would be worse.
And we see that in question 13 of Life is Worse or Worse, when we ask them why, you'll see that same exact thing. One thing I can say that I'm really excited about, we're just waiting on the final everything to be approved, but I had a student intern that was Spanish speaking with we're going to be bringing on part-time. So she will be able to focus on that Hispanic population and be able to meet those services a lot better than we have been. Because that is one of the things we did see, was there was an increased request from the Hispanic population for services. I can't tell you based on other demographics off the top of my head. I can get those for you, but I do know that area we did see a need, and we are looking to fill that in the fall.
I'd add, we did have that, certainly the concern year one, when we first implemented that, and it's actually been a few years now. The first year that we implemented, obviously, was extremely low participation. And so it absolutely needed a lot more conversation with our families and setting up more information and just making sure that they understood the why behind it. And it wasn't about, trying to get them to think that, hey, we're trying to say that there's something really wrong with your kid. It's just a matter of trying to identify problems ahead of time and try to make sure that we provide supports. And so I think that narrative has gotten better and more clear. The last year, I think, was just any number of different issues and challenges around that. But I think if you look at some of the things that we're going to try to do in terms of opt-outs and things like that, just trying to get access to more of our families so they can see the services. They can still decide not to participate in things like that, but we don't have that be as one of the barriers. Yeah, trying to really make the services as accessible as possible so that they have the right to, like I said, opt out if they want it, but to really make sure that we're not putting barriers in, like by communication by phone or, some of those things, that we can be there a little more supportive during that time.
Just little lens coming in, what I've learned too is making sure that their staff is integrated with our staff who have that trust in those relationships. So they're not seen as outside of us, but they're more integrated and partnering with our own staff to help build that bridge back to our families.
And we're working really hard to be intentional about reaching out to parents and really finding out how we can not only connect with with the teachers, but help the parents see that and connect with them.
Or see how it goes, go out of tending to kind of sit back and see how it goes and see what occurs from, so.
Mhm. I hope so. I think you can see that too from our responses to the summer, but hopefully that as we do that more and more parents see that support, then that will build that kind of the community as they talk amongst themselves, so they start to see that, oh, we are seeing, this is what you're saying, what you're doing what you're saying. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Not, I don't know if it's a question, but, I know there's a lot of good services, people are taking advantage of it, it's a very good program. I'm just wondering, when, the families go through the program, are there specific goals that are set up, and I know they would probably be different for every family and different needs, but is there like a tangible, goal that, you guys will be able to share, to demonstrate that success for the family? So you got 35 people who went to the program, they were kind of struggling or not normal in this area, and to show where the improvement was made, what's some tangible things? Do you have that in place to show how the family benefited?
Yeah, so one of the biggest thing that we're doing with that is that solution-based casework. And what that does is we go in and we do kind of like an assessment on what areas it's a safety focus. So, whether it's psychological, moral, what is our force? It's psychological, moral, physical, and social, which we define in the family. So we're just looking at what areas can they need. And then we develop a very specific action plan that has very specific measurable steps and a very specific way to measure success. And through that, then we can celebrate that success with them. And so as teachers, school personnel, they can be involved in it, or parents, or both would be the ideal, right? Is that all the adults in the child's life are. What I really like about that model is it allows us through that action plan to be very specific and kind of like a traditional treatment plan. And so that they can know and celebrate the success as they go.
Okay. So when it sounds like the parents and the family, whoever takes advantage, they'll feel that effect, right? They'll be, the recipient of that. And that's great.
Yes.
In terms of like putting it on paper, like how would you categorize something like that to show or demonstrate, hey, we had, this is how that worked? Or,
you mean like for reporting?
Yes, yes. Like what would that look like if you thought about it? Or it's, because I see the numbers, they're great. I'm just kind of wondering,
right?
How is that family impacted? It's easy to say, hey, I saved 10 kids from suicide. That's great, but I know there's a lot more than just that, right? I'm just curious of what kind of issues are being addressed from the different people taking advantage of it.
So as far as like, let's say the solution-based casework, one of the plans is that once that plan is developed, we can report on how many families and how many students had a plan put in place for them, as well as then we can track how many would the therapist or family resiliency navigator be able to say they successfully completed their plan. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of, if they complete the plan, benefit, and that's great. I was kind of wondering like if it was categorized. I don't have the answer. I'm just kind of asking, if you were to look at a sample of people in the program, what kind of things, that the services actually provide for them that, you could, hey, we did this or we did that,
Yeah, and we're obviously, it's still new to us. We're just learning it and adapting it to our model. So as we start to do it more and see what's happening, we'll be able to fine tune that. Right now, some of what we're doing is that's where that Ross Green also comes in, that CPS model. So we go through and we figure out what the lagging skills are for the students, build a plan around developing those skills, and then we can see case by case have they increased those skills and be able to learn. The reporting out piece, I'll have to be given some thought on that still. I haven't exactly figured out how to quantify that. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate our partnership. I'm excited to see what we're going to be able to do in the future, the changes that we're going to make. But still, this is one of our areas that I'm most proud of, the services that we continue to provide our kids. And again, we have several community partners that this continues to grow, but we continue to expand our services with more students. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that is informational, so we will move back to, we finished curriculum instruction, right?
We did.
Okay, good. Workforce excellent.
So we have, every year we bring to the board and have a presentation in terms of employee exit surveys. And so we kind of go through and look at that information, disseminate it, try to make sure that we're finding common themes and a variety of different information. So it's been a little bit around every year, so certainly different changes on the board. So we're going to prepare maybe just a little bit more information this time than we have in the past. So that way you guys get a good understanding of kind of where we are. So Dr. Maya, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. I have glasses, so I have to go up and down still. I need to get into bifocals, so you have to bear with me. So tonight I'm going to provide you an overview of our exit survey results. Really going to give you a very high level, what does a survey look like? What are the results? And then what is Dr. Rodriguez and I's plan moving forward with the information that we have? So historically, we've been using this survey for the last 5 years. I did a report in the next slide. Go back one. You've seen this before. I just wanted to put it back in there. So this is just a high level overview of how many certified and classified staff we've had both in resignations and retirements. So when looking at this slide, just very, again, high level, we had 122 total staff that did leave Grandview. 62 of those were certified, 60 were classified. Out of those certified, 42 completed the exit survey, which is 68% of that 122. And then 27 classified, which is 45% of that 122. Kind of went back and looked at how many responses we had in the past on this survey. This is really good responses. We had 69 people fill out the survey. That was a big increase from years past. In 2020, we had 14 responses, in 1924, and then in 1818. So you can see that 69 responses was a quite an increase. This is just a high level of what this survey looks like. So staff are given these different items on a Likert scale, and they're just asked to indicate what impact each of these items had on their reasons for leaving. And then under the one kind of down where it says personal reasons, there's a text box that they could fill in specifically what that personal reason is. Then the survey moves into a second part where it basically asks the participant to check a box that applies to their situation. And then on numbers 1, 2, and 5, they're able to type in a description of specifically what it is related to that item. And the third part are just the open-ended kind of questions. And the idea behind this is to gather some themes that you can use moving forward with both retention and recruitment for your workforce. So I took a dive into the responses of those 69 staff and put it into what I call a data dashboard, just to get some perspective of where we might want to look further. And when I will present to you a data dashboard like this on several things, and I use kind of like green is we're good for right now. Yellow would be kind of like a dashboard on your car, warning, and then red would be we need to immediately look into that. So interestingly enough, out of that 69, I just used a Likert scale and did a median calculation and a mean calculation. And it showed that work conditions and personal reasons were of concern. And I'll go into those a little bit later into the presentation. So for the sake of this, I just did some real simple percentages based on staff and what they reported. So as far as the item pay scale, 76% of our staff reported that it was not a factor. And then you can see that 24% did. 86 of the staff responded that benefits was not a factor. So how you'll see me report is if it is larger than 50, then I'm reporting that it was not a factor. And we know that the closer it gets to 50, the more you have to narrow down and really see between those responses if it is or not. So work conditions, which I said was in that yellow, if you remember, and that's why it was yellow. You start to narrow, what does that mean? Because 50 of our staff responded that it was not a factor, but then 50% did. Relocation, 86% of the staff responded that it was not a factor in leaving. Under supervisor relations, 64% of the staff said supervisor relations was not a factor in leaving. And personal relations. If you remember, you were able to type in what the personal reason was. So there was a bunch of comments in there. And so I took those because it was so close, 51% saying that it was not a factor and 49 said it was. And I looked for common themes for what some of those personal factors would be. And so you can see those to the right, that those were kind of the common things. Relocation, 86% of the respondents said that it was not a factor. Other would be like that personal reasons where they had a text box, they were able to type something in. So I took all those comments, looked for common themes. Although 64% said it was not a factor, we're getting closer to that 50%. So I went ahead and took a dive, pulling out some of the common themes you found there. So with all that being said, having a new lens coming in and really asking some questions on what do we want from this kind of data and where do we want to take this moving forward. So Dr. Rodriguez and I have been talking about what I call Grandview Listens tours and their listening tours. You know, over the last year, our staff has experienced a ton of changes, whether it be through the pandemic, stress related to working remotely, COVID, medical issues and health, whether it's related to their own families, you know, that causes a lot of chronic stress. So in order to understand what our staff are going through and what they need, the idea is that you go out and do these listening tours and you listen to what staff are experiencing and what you're seeing in my data, that you would create common themes and bring those back into leadership team. I'm pitching that this would be done on an annual basis, and you'll hear me use the word engagement a lot. When you do listening tours and you ask your staff how they're engaged, there's several things that really this serves as an advantage. One, it cultivates employee trust because you're asking everybody in your workforce, so all voices are able to be included and heard. It provides a more accurate picture of what's going on across the district, so that when you are able to respond, I believe you're able to respond in a way that more accurately meets needs than if we were to respond just, let's say, to that 69. We may be missing or off the mark. We have to define the problem and really understand it to be able to solve it. Do you want to add to that?
Just as we go through that, like I said, the backside of that is going to be the trust that continues to be built in this district, which has always been paramount. It's going to be the things that we hear, things that we learn, and then the actions associated with it. What changes do we need to make in order to build that trust in every single way. So we're gonna have to make some of those changes. So what those are going to be, I mean, I can surmise right now, but certainly we're gonna, as we go through and we listen, and we start to hear some of those things, then we'll start to look at what are the action plans associated with that. And those are things, again, that we come back and we bring back to the board as well, to make sure that we're sharing that information also. But what are the actions associated with it? How do we make sure that we are building that trust and saying, hey, we've heard that these are challenges. These are some things that we can't control, that we're all frustrated by. But here are things that we can control, at least maybe able to make that better for everybody. And then how do we make that happen going forward? So that's going to be a very interesting piece to that. But it is a two-way communication. But as we said, I think a lot of this is listening and going out and making sure that they feel heard. I don't like any of our staff to ever say, no one's listening, no one's hearing what we're trying to say. So this is the goal, is to make sure that we are going out and we're specifically saying, we went out at these particular times to make sure that we could gather that information. Here are the things that we heard, here are the things that we believe we certainly need to be addressing, and here are the action steps associated with that. And then going back out and making sure we're sharing that, saying, okay, here are the things that we heard, here are the things that we're doing. Do you see any changes to that? Do you think that these are providing that moving forward? Did it make the impacts that we thought that it would? Maybe it did, and we need to make sure to be true of that. So it's be an ongoing thing. That's not going to be an immediate fix. It's not going to be a quick fix. It's going to be something that we're going to do as an ongoing basis and make sure that we kind of continue to do this.
I could add two things. It also provides you with strengths that you can build upon throughout your, it highlights the things that we're also doing really well. This tool will also be used as a continuous improvement tool and integrated within Grandview 10 and Grandview 8 to make sure that that data goes into that process. Personally, I'm going to use it for that understanding retention, right, recruitment and engagement for the whole workforce. So on this slide, I really wanted to bring it back to our current mission and vision. If you look into that, one of our mission and vision statements is really connecting with positive relationships and a culture of acceptance and respect. Really, it also highlights in the collective commitments that we value sustaining positive relationships and involvement among students, staff, families, and community members. Moving forward down the road, you can ripple effect into including families and community members into this. But right now, starting to focus on the workforce and where they are right now. This connects directly to the CSEP and to the work that I will be doing in human resources. Under focus area number 3, I wanted to make that connection for you under workforce excellence. These listening tours meet each of the goals in these areas and allows me to collect data to meet those goals in the CSEP. Again, more to come, just giving some vision to where, knowing what we know with the exit survey and where we're going to move forward with this, to use it to help recruitment, retention, and you'll hear me say that a lot, engagement of our current workforce.
I think it also gets to, again, when you look at the exit survey piece, that is individuals that have already chosen to leave. Our focus has to be on the staff that are here. So how do we, like she said, how do we retain the staff that are here? Make sure that we are listening and moving forward. People are going to choose to leave for any number of different reasons. You've seen a lot of those reasons listed. Sometimes there are going to be individuals that there's just nothing that we can do in order to retain them. It's just not the place that they want to be. Certainly, there's a lot of different things that we can do. We want to make sure that we're constantly improving. I think this is going to be one of the processes that we use finally that can be that continuous improvement model we've not necessarily had before. But as she mentioned, one of the pieces that we need to make sure that we know is what do we do really well? What are those things that we do really well? Sometimes we do focus on the negative. We have to. We have to focus on the areas we need to improve. But we also need to know what we do really, really well so that we can continue to accentuate those and maximize those that impact those positive things as well.
Questions, yeah.
Question, so how have you thought about how you structure the listening tool? I mean, would that be like one to each building, personally? Is everybody in there? Is it, more like a skit level where it's, how are you planning on conducting?
So Dr. Rodriguez has asked me to create another presentation that I will go into greater detail on what that will look like. But yes, to everything you're saying. You schedule them across the district. You give opportunities and times during the day, after, in the evening. And typically have a set of questions, so I'll work on those so there's consistency across what you're asking. We'll spend a lot of time theming them. But yes, to answer your question, I have dates across the calendar when you go. We'll communicate to which building. The idea is that anybody that wants to participate can. Did that answer it?
Yes.
Okay.
My question is, and not necessarily put you on the spot, sort of put you on the
It's okay.
spot, because we're dealing with this at our place of work. But how do you deal with or address the issue of, we've heard the talk about things getting better, we're gonna do things different, we're gonna pay more attention to diversity and inclusion, but yet management doesn't look like what they represent. How do you deal with that? How do you handle that question? Because part of the reason I think you don't hear some of the things is because they don't think it's gonna make a difference, because they're not heard, they're not represented.
I think that my initial response is, it goes back to things that sound very basic, but dialoguing, starting those conversations and talking about it. What you just said, and me, I'll just use me as an example, being open and vulnerable and saying, you know, I may not be representative of all groups, but I am going to listen, advocate, and become an ally for all groups. And I think for people to see change, they have to know that listening is the first part, and then responding and action planning is the second part. And that sounds so basic, but can be complicated. So I'll go back to, I really want to understand what our engagement looks like, and what our strengths look like. When you do this, it allows you to get a more diverse perspective because everybody's included. So I think that builds trust, because again, if I'm only, if I look at my sample and it's only representative of one population, I don't know that that builds trust. So I'm going to cast a wider net. You can keep pushing on me if you want, but those are my initial thoughts.
And I'll add to that, just, you know, we have specific goals even in our, you know, strategic plan that we have to address. And so again, as we report out and we share with our groups, if they see progress toward those pieces, that's going to continue to build trust as well. So are there groups that are not as represented as they should be in our administration? Sure. You know, our teaching staff is still predominantly white, and our percentage of students of color is about 70%. So it's almost reversed. We have about 70% of our teaching staff that's white, about 70% of students of color. So we know that we still have a long way to go in a number of different ways. We have to continue to make sure that our students see people that resemble them. That's going to build trust with them as well. But I also know that we can build relationships and we can build trust no matter what with different groups if we come at it the right way. So I think as we continue to do all that, it's going to be something that we have to continue to look at and be responsive to, because it's not going to be perfect.
So I'm going to follow up to that question. So goal 1 in connecting to the CSIP is, you know, increasing gender and ethnic diversity 1% each year. Do you know right now how that changed for this year?
I don't, but I certainly can report that back to you.
And remember, we do regular updates on progress towards CSIP as well. So if we need to do more regular updates, we will certainly do that. We usually report about halfway through the year, about twice, but we can certainly continue to do that.
I was just curious, given that question and that it was listed in here.
And that's what you see me really starting to connect back to that CSIP, but I'm going to do that intentionally to keep myself on track.
I have a selfish goal in that asking that question. I said, we're dealing with this at work, and one of my biggest challenges over the last 8 years has been dealing with the wide group of people that have been always have this, so I'm trying to figure out how do we deal with this, especially here in the district as well, and that is, you have some people say, I heard it, saying it, show me. You got the new people that come in, hey, we're gonna change the world, we're gonna do it. And then you have the others that are sitting on the fence, just watching both sides, waiting to see who falls first. So that's why I say I'm looking for ideals as well as asking, because I know I use Kenny as an example, talking at work about how to include diversity and inclusion. But the challenge is it's not always diversity and inclusion. We have an issue with systemic racism. And then you have diversity and inclusion. People tend to jumble them together and they're not. So until we start addressing some of these issues, we're gonna see the results of what I call a cancer through everything that we do. So I'm trying to get as many ideas of how we move forward to do that, especially with our kids and staff. Because I hear some of the questions, reading some of the comments and talking to them, you can feel some of that, and things have come to a head over the last year and a half to just craziness. So.
And I don't think I have all the answers yet, but I think we're moving in that direction and we'll learn together
Definitely.
and walk this journey together.
Thank you.
You made a comment that you're only gonna do this once a year. Okay, what time of year are you gonna do this?
I plan to get started in the fall because, sorry, I got a little tickled. I want it to be right, that continuous improvement tool for Grandview 8 and Grandview 10. In a perfect world, we'd actually start in the spring, but I don't want to wait. So to answer your question, you'll see in a presentation, we're going to start September-ish, let school get going, and then start that tour through September, October, November, so that some of that data can be collected and really used within the school year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think once a year is probably very minimal, just for the situation we're dealing with. Would it have to ongoing be multiple times? But it needs to be, the trust is gone. I don't think there is, I mean, I really do. I think there has been a lot of trust broken, and for different reasons. I mean, multiple different reasons. I mean, we've read them. So, I mean, I do think having an open dialogue on a constant basis is going to be a great start. So I'm glad to see that you're going to start it right at the beginning.
And I'm open to the time. I anticipate that getting that net that is going to be enormous to handle.
Oh, yeah.
So this year, I would like to take a deeper dive, maybe as, you know, we know where we're heading in those common themes, it could be a quicker cycle. But my commitment is to try to cast the net and get a deeper dive this year. You like that?
Totally understood.
Just be this.
We totally did.
My hands, I'm just gonna hold them right here.
I have an additional question. I know you're writing a foundation, right? So I know you're right, we're right, and as we're going. In your mind, are you thinking kind of smaller, more intimate type settings may be better off for something of this density?
Absolutely. Probably even offering a Zoom. I've done them with smaller groups. Some people at night, like, you know, they say, I can't do this, but I can get on at 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And they like that distance, believe it or not. So not only smaller, but platform, you know, face-to-face, Zoom. When I've done them before, it's important to have the dialogue. You get more than a survey.
What other questions we have?
Not a question, just a statement. I'm kind of the odd duck here, because I come from a construction, manufacturing, and stuff like that. And I love what you guys are saying. My concern is, so we create this system, but we're still failing 50% of our kids. They can't even go out there and do a manufacturing job because they can't add, they can't read, they can't follow instruction. We need to find the best people we can find for the money that we can pay out. So it's not bad. I don't care what race they are. Because what I'm concerned about is all them kids that are going out there and not be able to get a job and be supportive of the community.
I don't think we ever lose sight of academic success.
Well, this has been going, this is not the first conversation we've had about this, and I don't hear you. I don't hear anybody talking about that. I don't hear any of us asking that question now. How are we gonna make these kids be a productive person in society? Because that's what the goal is.
Well, that's the conversation actually I had, with the principals at the end of the year. And, part of my opening comments that I'll provide to them, next week as well. The challenge is, again, we're going to have any number of different concerns and things with our staff returning. We're gonna have stress, we don't not know what they've dealt with over the summer. And again, there's still the pressures of things. Some people may come back and experience a little bit of trauma themselves just because of the things that happened last year. So as we go through those particular things, like I said, no matter what, we have to move the needle. We have students that we are not moving in the direction that we need to right now. We're not meeting their needs currently. And so the challenge is going to be, we have to move and we have to push. So there's not going to be, you know what, let's take this year and just make sure that we relax and be calm and let's get everybody back on the same page. There are ways that we can do both, but we're gonna have to, have to be very, very deliberate, because we can't have these meetings and just relax and say, hey, everything's gonna be okay. We're still gonna be pushing. So there's still going to be individuals that are not gonna like that push. They're not gonna like that this is the direction that we need to go and why. And so we're still gonna have individuals that are gonna want to leave our district. We're still gonna have individuals that are not gonna necessarily like that. Now, there's no right way and a wrong way to do those things, and there's a professional way to do those kinds of things. But even then, when you do everything perfect in what you believe is the right way and the professional way, we're still gonna have individuals that they're not gonna choose this place as the way that they're supposed to, the direction that they wanna go. And to your point, we're gonna hire the people that do. We're gonna bring in the people that want to be a part of what we're doing, the direction that we're heading, and to make sure that they come in with that fire that you said, oh, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to change the world, let's go. Wherever you're going, I'm going with you. That's what we have to make sure we do. Can't do it in spite of everybody, because we certainly don't want to turn over the entire staff. So it is definitely going to be complicated. There is no easy solutions here, no easy answers. We have to move, and we have to make sure that we are pushing, so that we can make sure that we're showing the academic gains that I know we can.
Part of that too is also knowing your audience. I think the overall theme is that, yes, we're gonna take care of kids the best we can. I don't think that was ever a question. But in choosing the right people, we gotta make sure they relate. We had some people here who were interviewing for superintendent at one point in time. Great qualifications, great skills, but he would have destroyed this community. That's just my view, because of his personality, the way he did things. So we have to look at those things that make up the people we're bringing in for the kids, so that when you get an employee, you're not a butthead. You actually understand how to deal with people of all types, because that makes that job situation much better. Because I will take someone who has a good skill set and able to work with people, as opposed to a superstar who's a butthead. And that's what I'm talking about here in terms of who we bring in. I don't particularly care what color they are, as long as they're able to relate and make those things happen. Because if you can't relate to someone, I don't need you on my team, because you're not going to be a team player.
Our goal is to meet the goals that are set out in the CSEP to make sure that we're moving this district forward. Make no mistake about it. We're going to hire the best people for the job, regardless of what that person's background or color or whatever the case may be. We're going to hire the best person for the job that's going to come in and do the best job for our kids.
But with this, we want to keep them too.
I'm gonna hire people who have a moral imperative,
And then we want to be able to keep
that
them because
understand
of
our
our
students.
environment.
Have a moral imperative for the achievement of our students, and understand that, and a sense of urgency that our students deserve it.
And keep in mind, we have traditionally, I'll not include this particular year because I have no idea what the data would say, but in the previous years, we have traditionally had one of the highest retention rates in the metro area. So you said earlier, you believe that trust is broken across the district. I would disagree with that. I think there are some significant challenges in some of our buildings, 100%. But I would say across the district, I would disagree that trust is broken. But we're gonna go around and we're gonna talk. We're gonna find out for sure, where are we at? What's going on? What are the significant challenges that we need to deal with? We're gonna move this district forward.
So it's almost like I paid you to say those things. So I have a couple of questions. So first, on slide 4 with survey completion information, how does the number of respondents this year compared to years past? Higher, lower, similar?
I'm going to slide 4. Oh, I looked at that. Sorry, I'm just looking at my numbers. You know, there were way more responses this year than the previous years, period. So, because there were so few responses in general, this year, yes, there were significantly more than in the past years.
That's certainly something we want.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
We actually changed in the HR department, they changed what they did in terms of
Mhm.
the frequency that they sent out reminders.
Yeah.
To make sure that they were getting the best possible responses. They've never sent as many reminders as they had, and they just kept sending them to make sure that they got the largest group of responses as they could.
So when I look at your data dashboard, which I
Mhm.
appreciate, I'm a data person, I like it. You know, there's definitely some areas of yellow. I think there potentially could be some areas of red you mentioned, but I don't necessarily see that on here. But then when I look on the next few slides, and I look at the 50-50 work conditions you mentioned, personal relations, 50-50, and I look at supervisor relations, really success begins from the top down, right? I mean, it begins here and it trickles all the way down, right? So what are your thoughts on the higher numbers and some of the comments here around, you know, supervisor relations was one of the questions, but then you said there was a common theme under personal relationship, and it does say supervisor relations, work conditions. So in the personal, it's actually referencing some of the other questions that are in there. So it's kind of overlap, it looks like.
It does, and I think.
So again, kind of comparing to years past, how does that compare and what are your thoughts on that?
I did not go back and compare the past. I did not, but I can do that. I'm gonna give you just general what I think, again, outside coming in. This is a pocket, and then within the pocket was a pocket. So I think all of this is important, but it's one data point. And I thought just to be cognizant that there is I'm gonna use the same word, broader net towards this. Nothing in here can't be fixed or can't be improved upon. So this just, right, brings it to our awareness, allows us to get motion into what we're gonna do about it. So I'm not sure I answered your question, but I can go back and look. The sample size were so small in the previous years.
Sure.
That I didn't put a lot of time, I'm just being honest, into those, because there were just these few people.
Sure.
I'm not sure I
It does
answered.
affect the statistics a little.
It really does,
Small
it really
sample size.
does. And, you know, it'd be interesting, again, the demographics, next time I'll include that too. So very long answer for. This sample also has a pocket inside of it. If you removed that, you know, it might look totally different as well. Or if you focused on the subgroup within the group. At the end of the day, I'm excited to have some data so that we can action plan under that CSIP goal and move forward.
Thank you. Any other questions on that?
I don't know that I have a question, but I guess I would think that, I mean, the whole tour sounds good. Listening to it, sounds like, you know, from the surveys and all the feedback, that, I mean, obviously, we wouldn't want to be looking at slide, you know, 4 the same way next year. I mean, we want to retain our teachers, so in this listening tour, you're looking for things that, you know, or tangible that you can do something with, get some feedback, and get some camaraderie around administration and staff to stabilize, you know, the workforce, to make sure that we can give the kids what we need. So, you know, if anything, you know, we don't want slide 4 to be the benchmark for how well, you know, we're taking care of the staff and the relationships that they're building. So it's hopeful that, you know, what you're listening to, we can get some of those things and get the camaraderie that we need with the staff and move forward and let slide 4 be a part of PASS, you know, going, you know, forward next year. So I'm interested to see how it goes. I'm looking forward to the readout.
You're definitely speaking my language.
That was informational, so thank you very much. We will continue on then. Resource stewardship.
We have several items here, certainly a few additional projects that we're going to be doing. So Dr. Fausto, start with the superintendent.
Just kind of as I wrote for a background there, we had to do an abatement there at the high school and we took some bids and the company we've selected is currently working with Johnson Controls out the high school. Price not to exceed $27,680. So I'd recommend that you go with that company at this time.
Questions about this? Moving expenses is a good thing.
And getting sick of top.
Yeah.
Better.
Right. All right. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase service with TPC Interiors for the amount not to exceed $27,608.
Second.
Been properly moved and second to approve purchase service with TPC Interiors for an amount not to exceed $27,680. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to commission. District-wide painting, had this come up before as well. We had a little bit of discussion about it. Certainly anything you want to add, Dr. Patterson?
You know, it benefits 6 of our schools. And again, we took bids on this for you. And I'll be recommending that you approve paint bids with Daco Paint for amount not to exceed $37,675. $37,675.
All right, any questions about this? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the paint bids with Daco Painting for an amount not to exceed $37,675.
Great, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the paint bids with Daco Painting for an amount not to exceed $37,675. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimous. Thank you. Next.
Barton City office furniture. As you know, we're securing the front entrance of that school and construction's going well over there, by the way. But anyway, this would provide, and Ms. Cook was involved on this there last month or so. But anyway, this would provide new furniture for that front office. Mainly office furniture. It's through the architect, through Halsey Miller. And my supporting documents kind of shows you all the layouts of what we're getting. And but anyway, at the end of the day, we do want to get appropriate furniture placed into the new office space we're providing them. So we have that. I recommend that you approve that with Halsey Miller for an amount not to exceed $65,000.
You kind of look through some of those, you'll see some of the drawings and some of the pieces again. This is going to completely change the front of that building. We took advantage of the time that we were already going to have to do some of that anyways. So that we just took advantage of renovating that entire office. So it's going to look amazing when it's done. And so certainly this is just a piece of that.
Further on, I think Ms. Cook's vision was, you know, you don't want to put the old furniture back into a new facility. And it's time. So.
All right, any questions about that?
This furniture really, I'm just
You don't like it? You want to change color scheme? What's going on?
It's a smoky pour.
sorry, flashbacks from years ago.
I know what you're talking about.
I move that we approve the furniture and fixture bids from Hollis and Miller for an amount not to exceed $65,000.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the furniture and fixture bids from Hollis and Miller for an amount not to exceed $65,000. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimous. Thank you.
Then finally for you, I have HVAC units at the high school. Really, when Johnson Controls came in and looked at the overall project, that whether it was miscommunication, scope gap, doesn't really matter at this point. I'm not sure the whole story of my 11th day on the job, but what I do know is those five units were overlooked over the library. It makes sense to us that we place them all together at the same type of units where we can share light parts and light filters and all those types of things. We're recommended that you go with Johnson Controls not to exceed 82,256.76. And truly, we got some rebates coming from our project with Johnson Controls. It's going to be exciting. And I think the first rebate's about the same price as putting these units in. So we might be able to offset this cost very easily in a hurry. So anyway, that's our recommendation for you at this time. And it would be a change order.
How long is it gonna take to get those in?
If we can get it approved now, they hope to have it done by winter, but they're worried. They're truly worried like everybody else with supply and what's going on in the world right now. So that's why we kind of rushed it through winter this month.
The current units, they believe are fine for the air piece. In terms of the AC side, they're really concerned about the heating side on the back end. So it's not an immediate, that this has to be done before the first day of school, but this would be around the October timeframe. So that's just hoping that we can get them in.
I was trying to explain this to the finance committee there the other evening, and it was the heat exchangers on it. Was the concern on that. So what Dr. Rodriguez was referring to.
Any other questions on that? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the change order by Johnson Controls not to exceed $82,256.76.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second to approve the change order by Johnson Controls not to exceed $82,256.76. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, we'll move on then to governance.
We have a couple things here, certainly just in terms of the overall information contained in. We have one policy that is an alternative adoption. You can see the description there. If you're a parent, you've been made aware of this, but we're going to be sending out additional information in terms of Peach Jar, which is where we're going to be informing our parents through a digital platform. Yes, that will be instead of putting things in backpacks necessarily and doing a lot of prints, we're going to have those digital and electronic. So you'll see there that one of our policies needed to be changed. And, so we have an alternative adoption process through that. So just recommend that we approve the revisions to that so that we can move forward with this.
Questions? If not, then I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the revisions to policy K and I. Thank you. As presented, using an alternative method of adoption policy.
Been properly moved and second to approve the revisions to policy K as presented using alternative method of adoption policy in BF. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Thank you. Move on to report of board members. Who wants to start?
I got to go by and look at the new playground. For those that don't know, I spent 10 years as park maintenance supervisor. Plus I held the playground certified playground inspections. And very nice job, they did a good job. The city had worked with them before, installing playground stuff.
I believe it's done. Did it get done today?
No.
Okay. Just close.
Just kidding.
Yeah, 2 tetherball poles.
Okay. We're really, really close. We're this far away from England.
And we're having a field trip.
And then we're on field trip.
But who's pushing who on the swings? That's what I want to know.
You push.
Maybe.
I mean, come on.
My legs are too, well, no, they're not. I was gonna say they're too long to pump, but they're not. They're definitely not. All right. Who else has a report? Nothing, all right. We will have our work session, as we stated, next Saturday. Is that next Saturday? Yeah, so working on the final agenda for that now. It should be a fairly full day, so finalization of where it's going to be will be coming soon, right?
Yes, it still should be over at Chevy's, but
Okay, I don't know that we finalized that. We said we thought it would be.
I have that.
So get that out to you soon, and then just kind of prepared with your open ideas hat and fresh looks hats, and we're gonna go through quite a few things, so. Should be a good day.
Just in case, previous experience, dress is comfortable, because
Comfortable,
at
yes.
a certain time, it still stays, the AC goes off.
Yeah.
Just want you to be aware, that can be a shock when you first get there. We didn't do too bad last night, though.
No, it wasn't. We've had fans in there before, because it was a little warm. It's a little warm. So, yeah, so definitely comfortable dress.
Today, I do have a question. What will the seating be like?
What would you like it to be like?
Spaced or Zoom?
Well, we will continue to follow CDC guidelines on that at the moment, which actually talks about the spacing. But we'll look at what we can do and space things out. That's the best thing to do.
Thank you.
Plan is to continue to be in person. Unless something changes with the guidance. I got it.
All right, anything else? All right, and move on to the most important thing of the night.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and quickly seconded to adjourn. All in favor, raise your hand.